Hello everybody, and it's time to do a barrel roll, and if you found yourself here, it means that you probably know that it's a review for Banjo Kazooie. If you're here for the Let's Play, that's over in the other playlist. Banjo Kazooie is a platforming collectathon made by Rareware for the Nintendo 64, re-released on the Microsoft Store, and is part of the Rare Replay collection. Like most games of its time, it is a classic. Banjo Kazooie is one of my favourite franchises, and it's rare you'll find someone who would disagree. Well, at least up to a certain point. So why is this game such a classic that has withstood the test of time? Let's take a look. Being an older game, Banjo Kazooie doesn't really have much of a story, although, being a platformer, you get about what you expect. Banjo's sister Tootie is kidnapped by Gruntilda the Witch, and it's your job as Banjo and Kazooie to save her. So it's not much to write home about, but definitely a good attempt for the time. This is likely the weakest part of the game, but it doesn't really bring the game down because it's not story driven. One of the stronger points of the game is that every level's music is unique in a different way, always matching the style of the level itself. Click Woods in particular even has 5 different tracks, one for each area you play in, which in itself is incredible. Grant Kirkhope's work on this game, with his unique style and amazing talent, really brings the levels to life. I don't think that there's a single track in the entire game I don't like. Even if I don't like the level, I often find myself humming or whistling to its music. That's not all it does right though, the gameplay is also exceptional, especially for its time having followed Mario 64. It had big waiting boots to fill, and it delivered. Banjo Kazooie still controls beautifully to this day. This is likely due to its responsive and easy to understand controls. Even in sections where the jumps can be difficult, you never feel cheated. If you miss a jump or a platform, it always feels like your fault, never the game's. Although it is a collectathon, it doesn't feel like a chore most of the time, unlike some other games of this genre. Of course, in saying this, there are some difficult collectibles in the later levels. Each of the levels looks absolutely amazing, and you can easily get lost in the atmosphere of them all. I like to categorize them into 3 sections: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The beginner levels, Mumbo's Mountain, Treasure Trove Cove, and Clanker's Cavern, aren't inherently easy. However, they are much easier than the later levels, with Clanker's Cavern being the hardest, mostly due to the underwater segments. None have instant death spots, or many hazards past the enemies themselves, and they all have fairly simple designs. The next 3 levels, Bubble Gloop Swamp, Freezy Peak, and Gobi's Valley, are the intermediate levels. This is where we get more hazards, more unique or interesting enemies, looking at you sir slash and buzz bombs, as well as harder or more interesting ways to get jiggies and collectibles. With all of them having water hazards of piranhas, freezing cold water, and sand stanks, these 3 levels are much harder to traverse, not to mention having bigger areas to explore or discover. These levels are also where you'll learn new moves, so by the final levels you should have every ability the game has to offer. Speaking of the final levels, Mad Monster Mansion, Rusty Bucket Bay, and Click Woods are the advanced levels, with the last 2 levels of this group even having double damage from some enemies. They are normally fairly unforgiving too. Some enemies no longer drop life, and in some cases are unkillable. Hazards become more prevalent, the design of the levels becoming harder to traverse, with places where you can instantly die. My personal favourites, with one exception, all live in the intermediate section. I love all the levels there, Bubble Gloop being my favourite, with Freezy Peak a close second. Gobi's Valley didn't originally join them, but in recent years I've been finding myself appreciating it more and more. This is due to the fact that there is just so much to do in each level. Bubble Gloop has the Tip Top Choir, Mr. Vile, feeding the Crocs, and these are all fun jiggies. Freezy Peak has you slide down into Boogie to make him cough up a jiggy, then race him twice, as well as dive bombing Sir Sloshes. And in Gobi's Valley, every pyramid and of course Jinxie all have different and unique interiors. I also really enjoy Treasure Trove Cove for the most part. Some jiggies are a bit too easy to get, but we still meet characters like Captain Blubber and Nipper. Not to mention that the level has a pretty fun design and it can be a lot of fun to explore for the first time through. As for the levels I don't like, let's start with the most obvious one, Rusty Bucket Bay. Although this level isn't inherently bad, it is a little bland. There's not many exciting to get jiggies, and they're not really that hard to find. With the exception of Boombox and the time trial to the back of the ship, there's not a lot of jiggies I enjoy in this level. Not to mention, most of the places inside the ship itself are more of the same with different designs. I actually prefer the storage crate interiors than the interiors of the ship itself. Next, Click Woods. Again, not an inherently bad level, it's just repetitive. Mind-numbingly repetitive. A bit like this sentence. The idea of each area being a different season is great, but with the main enemy being the birds you will fight in 3 of the 4 seasons being a joke, and having to climb the same tree 4 separate times, it's just not fun. This is my favourite of the 3 advanced stages though, as it does have some pretty fun mumbo jumbo lines, as well as Ear the Eagle, Nabbit, and Naughty, who are some of my favourite characters from the game. Last and certainly least, at least in my opinion, Mad Monster Mansion. I do not like this level. I wouldn't go as far to say as I hate it, but I do not enjoy this level one bit. The jiggies are a joke, especially for how far into the game this level is. You would think that the jiggies would be a bit of a challenge, but aside from the shed and getting to Motan, there is basically no challenge in this level. Most jiggies, you just walk into a room and it's there. Even Nappa's jiggy is a joke, as it's extremely basic platforming with no need to rush. This level has very little in the way of hazards, and although most enemies do require golden feathers to be defeated, it's basically the same enemies for the whole level, with 80% being ghosts, skeletons, and the slugs from the paintings from Clanker's Cavern, but reskinned. I feel like with Mad Monster Mansion, they didn't put a lot of thought into it, and that unfortunately lets the level down in a lot of ways. As for the levels I didn't mention, Mumbo's Mountain and Clanker's Cavern, these levels are both great in their own right, and I enjoy them both. There's just not much I love or hate about them enough to have a strong opinion on. If I was to say anything about them, I would say I enjoy Mumbo's Mountain a bit more than Clanker's Cavern, but only due to Clanker's Cavern being an underwater level. A really cool thing about Banjo Kazooie is the transformations. There are 5 in total, but one can only be used in one area of the level, so it's more like 4 1/4. Each transformation is pretty cool in one way or another, except for the pumpkin. It's just so boring and bland. Given we have things like the alligator who can attack and the bumblebee that can fly, the pumpkin is basically just a Halloween termite, which is Mumbo Mountain's transformation. I feel like this could have been avoided. Make it a jack-o'-lantern rather than a pumpkin, and give it a fire attack with Kazooie's egg controls as the commands. Throw in a puzzle where you have to light candles or something, and bam, the transformation is so much better. Now you'd think that a game from 1998 wouldn't age very well, but it did, and even though it did get some re-releases, not much was changed when it comes to the design of the characters. Both their look and personalities always brings a smile to my face when I haven't played the game in a while and I get to see them again. Banjo and Kazooie's dynamic is great to watch, with Banjo being pretty kind to most people, having the sarcastic and witty Kazooie stepping in for her 5 cents, and at most times insulting someone, Banjo sometimes has to keep her in check. This can be seen on the idle scenes too, where Kazooie will peck Banjo so he'll pull on her neck to get back at her. The other characters in this game are amazing too. Bottles is both useful for moves and a good laugh with his banter with the two. Mumbo is a crowd favourite. He too has a witty line or two when he transforms you. Even Gruntilda. For a villain of this era, she is so funny. Her rhymes and insults where you climb her tower, and even at the end, she's just constantly taunting you for everything you do. Also, can we just acknowledge that nearly every single object is sentient in this game, and that to me is just so amazing. Having a platformer where even the collectibles are alive talking to you was just such a unique thing at the time. Banjo Kazooie is also fairly easy to complete. I feel it's one of those games where almost anyone could pick it up and finish a good majority of it before growing bored or moving on to something else. Overall, this game is incredible both for its time and today, and it's well deserving of a remake for sure. The fact that Microsoft has this property locked away in a vault somewhere to gather dust really makes me sad. It's a great series and it deserves a resurrection. This can be seen with Yooka-Laylee. Although in my opinion, Yooka-Laylee didn't have the same charm as Banjo Kazooie, it was still a really amazing attempt from the original team who made Banjo Kazooie at reviving one of their masterpieces. I would easily give Banjo Kazooie 8 out of 10 G's. The music and visuals are great, the gameplay is amazing for its time, and even to this day, the characters are fun and lovable, even if you've played the game several times. Banjo Kazooie is by far one of Rare's best creations. It is a shame that Microsoft has let it rot for all these years. If you think I missed anything, or you'd like to share your own opinion on the game, feel free to leave a comment below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and as always, wherever you are, stay safe and be well.